Headline inflation increases by 15.60% year-on-year in January 2022 as food inflation rises by 17.13%. Federal government to focus more in attaining self-sufficiency in sugar production. Japan's Nikkei 225 jumps 2% as Asia stocks rise. China's January inflation slows more than expected. Plus, oil prices hold steady as Russia-Ukraine tensions cool. The program is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. It is that time we talk business, and we'll start by telling you that a new World Bank report on development in 2022 says developing countries face growing risks from financial fragility created by COVID-19 crisis and non-transparent debt. The World Bank is of the view that rising inflation and interest rate increases poses further challenges to recovery. Therefore, developing countries need to focus on creating healthier financial sectors.
Critical to a robust recovery. Innovations in technology, including digital payments, will be central, especially for low-income households and medium and small enterprises.
Latest data by National Bureau of Statistics shows that inflation declined marginally in January 2022 after demand pressure pushed prices in December 2021. Statistician General of the Federation, Simon Harry, who released the figures, is optimistic the numbers would continue to decline in the year. Bossede Abel reports.
Inflation rate is one of the key macroeconomic variables like GDP, employment and unemployment exchange rates, among others. The first inflation data for the year 2022, which measured the price changes for goods and services, shows that consumer price index dropped marginally to 15.6% year-on-year from 15.63% recorded in December 2021, which is 0.87% higher.
On the state-by-state comparison, all items inflation on year-on-year basis was highest in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, with a figure of 18.59%, followed by Kogi, which had a figure of 18.28%.
On a month-on-month basis, both urban and rural inflation recorded increases. Both inflation rose by 16.17% year-on-year in January. It was lower by 0.86 percentage points. On the other hand, rural inflation rate increased by 15.06% in January 2022, lower by 0.86 percentage points January 2022 inflation. The highest increases were recorded in prices of electricity, liquid fuel, wine, tobacco, spirit, solid fuels, cleaning, repair and hire of clothing, shoes and other footwear, other services not elsewhere classified, and pharmaceutical products. Boss said.
Meanwhile, the Statistician General of the Federation, Simon Harry, has said the present fuel crisis being experienced across the nation may have adverse effects on the inflation rate.
When there's a fuel crisis, just as we're having now, it creates an artificial shock in the economy. And so that shock is capable of shaking the economy. And whether we like it or not, you will discover that commuters will be taking, transporters will be taking advantage of the situation and thereby increasing the cost of transportation. And as the cost of transportation increases, as you are bringing your commodities to the market for sale, certainly you will be thinking of building on some amount on the selling cost so that you'll be able to recover the cost of transportation. So that gives us a negative signal that yield is capable of affecting not just inflation rate, but also other macroeconomic variables.
And as Nigerians continue to demand well-packaged goods and improved services, small and medium enterprises are encouraged to step up their game in production, processing, and branding. The Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN, says the various programs for MSMEs by the federal government are making a remarkable difference and have brought about a paradigm shift in the positioning of MSMEs in meeting set targets.
Challenges, our board has been able to pass the ultimate leadership test by providing the necessary support and leadership to the management to ensure the survival and continuing growth of the MSMEs in Nigeria.
We will continue with all the projects that we have been supporting with the board, and we'll continue to imbibe the culture they have installed in the agency.
And still on MSMEs, the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria has announced that it registered 3 million micro, small and medium enterprises under its mass registration program.
Able to achieve so much in the area of increase in the funding of our agency. We were also able to introduce some major projects and programs which have gone a long way in determining the future of the Nigerian MSME, especially one of the baby of the board is the creation of the mass registration exercise and the MSME marketplace database, and they have done significantly well on that, and we were able to register MSMEs with a SMEDAN unique identification number. And the registration is seamless, that you can just go into the website www.smedanregister.com, and you'll be able to register, get your unique identification number and print your certificate. And that has been a very good effort, and the full details of what their locations, the kind of product and services they provide, their contact, their email, their telephone number and what have you. So in case there is anybody who needs any of their product or services or raw materials, he can contact them directly by linking up to those MSMEs.
And now the move to diversify and drive the economy through boosting the non-oil sector has continued to be the focal point towards which deliberate policies and programs are targeted at to achieve sustainable growth and development. Recent efforts to achieve this include the central bank's raise to $200 billion foreign exchange to boost exports and various programs by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, which includes national mobilization drive for non-oil export towards adding $120 billion to Nigeria's GDP in the next 10 years. Joining me to talk on value addition and export is an Assistant Director, Product Development Department, Nigerian Export Promotion Council. Mr. Afolabi Bello, you're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. I'm pleased to be here to talk about non-oil export from Nigeria. Thank you.
Well, let's go straight to the crux of the matter.
Yes, please.
From the experience we've had, disruptions in global supply chains, businesses being impacted negatively by coronavirus, oil prices plummeted, and the key issue has been, what do we do with our non-oil sector? And NEPC has been at the forefront of doing this. Yes. And now we hear there's an initiative that is going to add $120 million to the GDP. billion, not million.
Not million,
That
yes.
is huge.
Very huge.
How feasible is that?
Thank you. It sounds ambitious.
Very ambitious.
It is ambitious.
That's why I actually call it million instead of billion.
Billion. It is ambitious, but once we have the drive, the will to do it, we can do it. We have all it takes to achieve that set target in 10 years. Nigeria has competitive advantage in production of many agricultural produce. We call it produce. There's a difference between produce and product. We'll come to that. Services, manufacturing sector, and all that. But we've been unable to convert this competitive advantage to competitive advantage. So what the NEPC did was, like 4 or 5 years ago, we came up with what we call the zero oil plan to reduce Nigeria's dependence on oil,
Yes.
and move it toward the non-oil sector. That was why we came up with that plan and targeted the $120 billion. That if we're able to put some strategies in place, increase production of some of these agricultural products, increase the skill gap in some of the services sector, within that 10 years, we'll be able to boost the economy by generating this $120 billion. It's actually feasible and realizable.
Okay, talking about bridging the skills gap, I know there has been this project by NEPC
Yes.
where 50 billion was set aside for
Yes.
MSMEs,
Yes.
not really MSMEs, SMEs, to promote exports.
Yes.
That program is being rolled out and I think it's been concluded.
Yes.
Can you briefly tell us the impact of that, why we look up to this particular initiative? Because the reason why I'm bringing this is that most times government has assisted, the private sector is also making its own contribution to ensuring that we have products that are taken out of this country
Yes.
to generate, for our reserves to grow and all of that. But we find some of these products being rejected when they get to their countries of destination. What are we doing to ensure we don't have reoccurrence of such things and boost exports?
Okay, thank you. You've raised two issues.
Starting from
The
50
EFP,
billion,
the
yeah.
50 billion. Okay, the 50 billion was as a result of, after where the COVID was on, the government came up with the economic sustainability plan
Sure.
to
Which is
try
still
to
ongoing.
reflate the economy. Under the economic sustainability plan, then the government felt, okay, for us to also diversify the economic base of the country, there's need to also boost the non-oil export sector. So the 50 billion was allocated to NEPC to reflect the non-oil export sector. So it was called, that program was referred to as the export EFP, Export Expansion Facility Program,
Yeah.
EFP. Under the EFP, there are about 8 work streams. We had companies impacted by COVID during the export, impacted by COVID, who couldn't export, who had to lay off staff and all that. So certain amount of money was allocated to them. They must be registered exporters who have been exporting, and through the records, it shows that within the COVID period, they are unable to actually do any business. There was also an aspect of the EFP that we call the Export Development Fund, EDF. It's for basically targeted at MSMEs, micro, small, and medium. What it's supposed to do is a pre-shipment inspection incentive to assist you in developing things like your packaging, capacity, logistic gap. It's activities that takes place before export. That's why it's called Export Development Fund. The scheme has been on for long, but we've never had the money to actually do. But the EFP provided us that support. There are also some company where we came up with what we call the domestic export warehouse, where because we know the supply chain challenges we have in the export chain. You are going to export from Lagos. You are virtually on the road for weeks. Export contracts have shelf lives. The buyer is waiting, he has a production schedule, and you're still in Lagos. So our exporters get discounted or contracts are cancelled. So with the domestic export warehouse, all export-related agencies will be domiciled in one facility. With the NPA, once you are ready to go, the NPA will give the signal. You go straight to the port. You don't need to do anything in Lagos on the road, stopped by any security agencies. So that was also part of the export EFP. Also, trade houses were set up in certain countries like China, Canada, South Africa, where Nigerian goods, just like Chinatown, you can move Nigerian goods to some of these trade houses, domiciled. That will provide an easy platform.
How has been the movement, the volume of movement of our products to this particular locations, and how has been the reception, talking about the standards? And would you say in such countries we have ready market for our products?
Okay, that question now goes into the rejection that you mentioned. They go together, because you see, if you are exporting for you or me as an exporter, there are two basic requirements. The requirement of the importing country and the requirement of the buyer. The requirement of the country, importing country, is that, okay, what you are bringing to me, to our country, is this safe? Does it meet our requirement? So that is something that have to be certified by a regulatory government agency in Nigeria. If I'm doing agricultural produce, for instance, the Nigerian Agricultural Commodity Service must certify that. If I'm doing value-added products, food or something, NAFDAC will have to do that. If I'm doing fishery products, Federal Department of Fishery will have to do that. If I'm doing animal and animal products, Department of Vet. So now, abroad, over there, like some of our produce, like I said, like sesame, we are the top leading producer in the world. There has been a leap in demand, but there has been also some challenges with food safety issues. They have found some things in some of our agricultural produce. That's why one of the reasons why they reject them. They are rejected because of food safety concern, because we also don't comply sometimes to importing country requirements.
So is that to say there is need to bridge a knowledge gap?
There's need to bridge a knowledge gap, and also there's need to also strengthen some of these regulatory agencies. The EFP seeks to address some of those identified gaps, because now under the EFP they have been.
So are there reforms that are ongoing? Is it something that needs legislation with the National Assembly? What is the NEPC doing alongside other regulatory agencies or promotional agencies in the agri subsector as well as the non-oil sector to address these issues?
What we do firstly is advocacy to these agencies that, okay, maybe you need to do more. You might have some challenges where we could bridge the gap with support for them. We take them around to train producers and exporters, because in the export sector there are chains. There's the producer, there's the merchant, there's the exporter. So we do that. Then the agencies needs to be strengthened. They need to have their capacity built, you know. Some of them, what they do are just basically manual sometimes. They need to be automated. They need to have more equipment so that, okay, for instance, let me just give a brief example. We do a base cost to Mexico like $300 million yearly.
That's huge.
That's huge, very huge. But some years ago, they stopped it. Why? They found some pests in some bags. We couldn't trace it back to where it came from. But if some of these agencies are strengthened, they have the equipment like scanners and what have you, that will be detected right from here. So we need to strengthen the export regulatory agencies, build their capacity, make them more efficient, and I'm sure once we're able to do that, we'll be able to address some of these export rejections that we face. Then the exporters, they need to build their capacity as well. The capacity.
Yes. Okay, still talking about exports and the areas of funding. There's this recent intervention talking about the CBN raised 200 billion for FX. How will that impact in what you do?
In fact, for us, and me personally, that is revolutionary.
Wow.
Why? Because now the CBN said, okay, commercial banks, we're not selling forex to you anymore. Generate your own forex from so time. The banks have now...
From December?
From December. They are forced to chase exporters. They are forced to invest in the non-oil export sector. Because what the banks don't understand is that exports are not short-term funding. Some are medium to long-term, you understand? From producing, from packaging, from logistics, it takes time. And
for it to penetrate the market,
sometimes you need to do market research and what have you. So now the banks will have no choice but to work with exporters, to give them funding, and also to develop their own capacity and know-how of how export is done. That way, what the CBN has done could look difficult, but it's revolutionary. It's going to make the banks go full-blown into the non-oil export sector, finance export activities, finance exporters. Then I tell you, the sky will not be the limit for Nigerian non-oil export sector.
Okay, I want to talk about the non-oil exports sector. We are basically talking about agric, and we've had a whole lot of production, you know, coming from interventions from the federal government. Yes. Are we doing well in processing? Yes, you've mentioned some part of value addition. Sure. What's that little touch that we need to get there?
Okay, fine. We need to do a lot more, because we cannot rely on exporting primary produce. You see, when you have it in primary form, you call it produce. When you add value, it's a product. So, but before you get to that, there's a processing step. So we need to invest in the processors. We need to help them build capacity, invest in technology, equipment, machinery. You know, there's a lot of things that go with processing. There are technical issues. Packaging, as what does the importing country require? Different country with different packaging and labeling requirements. We need to help them build capacity. Then the quality and safety of the produce, of the product
is another key.
It's another key. So we need to invest in them with technology. Now in Nigeria, previously we had very little number of accredited laboratories. Now we have close to 50.
Wow.
So with that, and also with
it means it is work in progress.
It is work in progress,
and we are getting there.
We are gradually getting.
Thank you so very much, Assistant Director, Production Development Department, NEPC, Mr. Falabi. Thank you so very much for sharing your thoughts with us at this particular point in time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Moving on, let's now see prices of commodities. Oil prices steadied on Wednesday after retreating more than 3% in the previous sessions as investors gauged the impact of easing Russia-Ukraine tension against a taut balance between tight global supplies and recovering fuel demand. Reuters report says that. And Brent traded at $93.19 a barrel earlier in the day, down 10 cents, having slid 3.3% overnight after Russia announced a partial pullback of its troops near Ukraine, yet to be verified by the United States. US West Texas Intermediate crude also held steady and last traded at $92.13 after the contract ended Tuesday's session, down 3.6%. Next is the global market.
It's the global market review. The east tension between Russia and Ukraine have mildly strengthened global trading, boosting markets on Wednesday. European markets inched higher as investors assess the geopolitical outlook. In Europe, DAX topped 0.24%, CAC 40 of France 0.02%, and FTSE 100 also appreciated 0.06%. Shares in Asia rose on Wednesday as investors reacted to weaker than expected Chinese inflation data and the eased tension between Russia and Ukraine. Japan's Nikkei 225 jumped 2.22% across 27,460.40, leading gains among the region's major markets. Mainland Chinese stocks appreciated as well, with the Hang Seng Index topping 1.49% at 24,718.90, and the Shanghai Composite also rose 0.57% at 3,465.83. Now, U.S. stock index futures were mixed during early trading Wednesday after registering gains on the session amid signs of tensions easing between Russia and Ukraine. While African markets are strengthening on Wednesday's trading as tensions eased between Russia and Ukraine, with the bulls dominating South Africa, Tunisia, and Namibia overall index markets, while Nairobi and Ghana's GSA Composite were muted. That's the Global Market Review. I am Bossede Abel.
Thank you, Bosede. Next, the exchange rate between the Naira and the US dollar closed at 460 Naira per dollar at the investors and exporters window, where Forex is traded officially. Naira appreciated marginally by 0.16%. They closed at 416 on Tuesday, 15th February 2022, compared to 416.67 to a dollar recorded in the previous session. This is despite a 22.9% increase in dollar demand at the official Forex market. Let's now see how the Naira is exchanging for other currencies. Business Express returns Thursday by 9:30. I am Benny Adams saying, stay safe.